Welcome to the Crooked Tail Podcast. This is Kai.
And this is Rob.
I was trying to throw you off. Did it work?
Yeah.
Hi, welcome to the Crooked Tail Podcast. This is Rob.
Oh yeah, that was the voice you used.
That'd be weird.
Is that a little bit louder?
Welcome to the Crooked Tail Podcast. This is Rob.
And this is Kai.
On this episode, we're going to be talking about why 2015 very well may be the year of nostalgia. So, Kai, what's going on with you? Let's do a little bit of catch-up since the last time. It's been a couple episodes since we've had you on.
Yes, I think the last one I was on was The Room. And we didn't have a lot of time for catch-up. It was more let's watch this horrible movie and get through it.
Yeah, we hope you guys enjoyed that. That was fun. I think we're going to do more crooked commentary, as I have labeled it on the site, crooked commentary tracks in the near future. We're talking about a couple different ideas at this point. Nothing set in stone, but
I like that. I don't know if I realized you called it crooked commentary at the time.
You don't read crookedtable.com?
I do. I read everything you post.
Okay.
I'm your biggest fan.
I hope so. I would like to think that that's the case.
I'm not just a big fan. I'm your biggest fan.
There's no fan bigger than you. Not even my mom.
No, not even your mom.
Because you'll listen to this and she probably won't.
Probably. But you know what? We can't assume. We can't judge. We just go forward.
That's right. Janine, if you're listening, I love you. So
what's new with me? Yeah.
What's new with you? And yeah.
Well, I've been doing my business full time, my financial coaching business, and just trying to help people out with saving and budgeting money and acting as a guiding force for their money management skills and tips and tricks. And I'm the money guru, so if you have any questions about it, any questions about money, come to me. If you don't have a question about money, I can still answer those invisible questions. And if you just want help with wedding budgeting, self-employed budgeting, first-time home buyer, first-time parent, I do all that too. And I even work with kids and teenagers that need some money management tips and tricks. There you go. That was my promotional boost.
I was gonna make a comment to that effect, but I like how you gave yourself this big promotional boost, but you didn't say the name of the business, the website.
I thought they knew.
Nothing. How people are not mind readers?
But I thought everybody knew who I was.
They follow you on Twitter if they see the posts for the podcast. They see your Twitter handle on it. But what would you want to share that with the people?
Yes, I'm Kai&nbsp. I'm Rob's wife, and my business is the Vault Key LLC. So you can find my Twitter handle at the Vault Key LLC. You can also find me on Facebook, my Facebook business page, and you can find me on LinkedIn, my personal and my business page. There you go.
I have been recently went into full-time freelancing, so I'm focusing on my freelance writing business. You can find that at robertyanisjr.com. Doing a lot of writing for some other sites, including screenrant.com. Great site over there for movie and television news. Other than that, we've been watching a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
I think, we'll talk about the current box office champ in a little bit, but a few weeks ago we did see Tomorrowland.
Yeah.
And how did you feel about that one?
I feel like it was really, really good and interesting in the beginning, and I thought that the Tomorrowland that they introduced was pretty incredible, but by the end of it, I didn't really know what I was watching anymore, and I felt like it lost its way. And yes, that might sound similar to your Tomorrowland review on your website, but I saw the movie with you, and we talked about it afterwards, and that's kind of how I feel about it. And I think that George Clooney and that actress,
Britt Robertson.
I think they had good chemistry, and I think they tried to, make it fun. And the thing is, it's like it's sold as a kids movie, but I think it's a certain age group. Like it should be PG-13 because it was a little high level concepts for anyone younger than 10.
So you think it should be rated higher, not because of the content, not because of like it's too adult for kids or something, but because they wouldn't even get it, so it's kind of they're wasting their time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I could see that.
I mean, but then again, movie ratings are really only created for things like violence, sex, language,
right,
drug use.
Exactly.
There was nothing said about it about high concepts, So it actually, in a way, that's good. In a way, that's good if there's high concepts because it lets the children think about those things. in more detail. And maybe they won't get it till they're older, or maybe they'll have to ask their parents. But yeah, maybe that's good to introduce them at a young age.
Yeah, and I feel like, I mean, honestly though, Tomorrowland is rated PG, and something like Interstellar is rated PG-13. I don't really see, as far as like the content-wise, I mean, I don't think Interstellar is really more extreme. Like, I don't really think it has any more violence or profanity or anything than in Tomorrowland does it?
No, I mean, I don't think Tomorrowland really had violence in at all.
Well, it had some action, like with the, the robots and all that.
Yeah, but there wasn't much violence. In Interstellar, I mean, in case a lot of people have seen it already, and Matt Damon got kind of physical with Matthew McConaughey's character.
Yeah, I know, but that was like a fist fight type of deal.
Well, it's violence, right?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Interstellar was sort of rated PG-13 for content.
Yeah.
I think that's sort of my point in mentioning that at all. And Tomorrowland did. I mean, I think we both said it when we came out of the theater. Tomorrowland was very much sort of an Interstellar like junior, like an Interstellar for kids, in that it was very ambitious, and it had a lot of big ideas that weren't really executed in the best way. And
could you go with more description on that?
Well, I don't know how spoilery we want to get with things, but like, it had a lot of good ideas about wanting to change the world and wanting to make the world a better place, and as far as keeping imagination alive and following your dreams and being optimistic and sort of flying in the face of the whole post-apocalyptic thing that everybody seems to be on, with Hunger Games and Walking Dead and Mad Max and all that other stuff. So
I do think that was a really creative spin for them to go that angle.
I think they didn't do enough with it, was my point, though, too. I think they didn't do enough with that idea. It was sort of casually mentioned in the third act, and I feel like Tomorrowland itself was built up to be this wonderful place, but then when you finally get there, that was where I started to tune out, honestly. There's this big set piece, and not to get into too much detail, involving the Eiffel Tower, and I feel like that scene and what came after it, that scene was sort of the turning point for me, where thereafter I was sort of like, oh man, this is what we're in for now. I was enjoying all that build-up before, with Britt Robertson coming together with George Clooney and the young girl character played by Raffi Cassidy. I thought she was actually the standout of the movie in a lot of ways, and probably the most interesting character.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So, but it's it's unfortunate because it's not a perfect movie, but it had a lot of ambition behind it, and I am a big fan of Brad Bird and The Incredibles and Mission Impossible: Ghost Protocol and all that, and it looks like, based on reports, it looks like Disney's going to be taking a $140 million loss on Tomorrowland. So it's a tremendous flop.
What was the budget?
I don't know exactly what it was, but it was probably pretty high.
Like $200 million?
Something like that. 150 something. I mean, even Mad Max just cost 150, and that was mostly practical effects. So this one was very heavy on CGI.
Jeez.
So
that's really, that's quite a shame.
It's really sad because it is sort of an original concept.
And you were really looking forward to it too.
Yeah, I was. It's sort of an original concept, even though it's technically named after the theme park attraction. But I mean, I feel like it only tangentially sort of ties to that. Like, by original like, a lot of people are sort of like, well, it's not really original, but it is. I mean, it's not a sequel, it's not a reboot, it's an original concept that the story has never been told. Even if you take something like Transformers and you put it to theaters, even the first one, it's not necessarily an original concept because it's based on characters that exist, storylines that exist, that kind of thing. Tomorrowland is, all they were doing was taking the name and like the thematic thrust of the theme park attraction and sort of creating a story inspired by that.
Well, weren't you saying something though about how you were really surprised that they didn't mention anything about Walt Disney?
Well, I mean, they had the World's Fair in the beginning, and It's a Small World was sort of the spoilers. The entrance into Tomorrowland was sort of through the Small World ride. But after that, I mean, they sort of imply that there's this secret society of like genius and like creative-minded people trying to.
Which reminds me of Atlas Shrugged,
I
a book by Ayn Rand. You guys should check it out if you haven't read it. It's a pretty incredible story.
I haven't read it. But
you're the first person I'm talking about.
But they never mention Walt Disney by name. They never explicitly state that he was part of that group. I guess it's sort of implied or left open that he was.
Well, he loved the whole idea of Tomorrowland. I mean, that's why Epcot was created.
Right.
Was because that was his vision.
Tomorrowland's a Magic Kingdom, though.
It is, but Epcot was the
sort of built off of that.
Right.
Oh, because Epcot was sort of
because it's futuristic.
that spaceship Earth ride, the big globe that everybody knows.
Right, and I think he passed away right before that theme park opened.
That ride was cool, actually. I like that.
They still have it.
They haven't messed with it that much?
No, they've updated it.
A lot, or like?
Oh, just modernized it. It was
okay, good.
like really 80s in the early 20s. But,
well, yeah.
In the early 2000s, but now it's they turned it to 21st century.
It was really 80s in the early 20s.
Exactly.
So that was Tomorrowland. And then we've recently been what have we been recently watching at home?
We've been watching Full House, my choice, and Buffy. So I'm really excited because Fuller House is I think it's going to premiere on Netflix next year, and as a Full House fan, it's one of my favorite shows growing up, and now I am really excited, and I can't wait to watch it. And I'm not a big TV person. There's really no TV shows that I go out of my way to watch on like a weekly or monthly basis, but this one I'm going to tune in for, and maybe even binge watch.
Because it's nostalgia. See how that works?
Yep.
Ties back in around. Did you hear? Actually, I didn't even mention this to you. I actually heard today that John Stamos was in like DUI and like arrested or something. Did you hear about that?
I think it happened on Sunday. I mean, this was pretty recent.
I just heard it today. I don't know when it happened.
Yeah, it was, or maybe it was yesterday morning. I know it was pretty recent. It was all over my Facebook.
I hope that doesn't delay anything. Like, I hope he doesn't have to deal with like charges and stuff.
Well, first of all, he's a famous actor in California.
They've all had. I mean, you haven't like. You're not part of that community unless you've had a DUI, I guess.
Yes, and their jails are too full.
It's true.
So he'll probably just get sent out on the street in an hour.
So if we see him on Full House with like a metal like ankle bracelet on or something, we'll be like, it's crossing over.
Yeah, I think that's pretty severe for DUI charge. In fact, I don't even know what his limit was, but I'd like to think since it's Uncle Jesse that it wasn't very high, like maybe it was 0.09.
I'd like to think that the officer pulled him over and is like, "Can I see license and registration?" And he's like, "Have mercy." Put his hands up like, "Have mercy." Probably not though, but that would be funny.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, and Buffy, how are you liking Buffy? For you guys don't know obviously, but Kai never got a chance to finish Buffy. She used to watch it when it was on TV. No, I'm speaking for you. You can step out of the room. The first 3 seasons, so we were sort of brushing up on the first 3, and then we're gonna kind of take it from there. So what have you been? How's that been? Kind of refreshing your memory of the show.
Oh, it's been fun. Actually, for some of the episodes you've been showing me from season 1 and season 2, I think some of them, at least definitely one of them I hadn't even seen before.
Which one was that? The Halloween one?
No, the one where oh my gosh, it was like the one where I don't remember, but it was one.
Wait, give me one. You gotta give me a description. I'll know what you're talking about based on that.
Oh, maybe something involving the harvest.
Oh, that was the first episode. That was
no.
The harvest was the pilot.
No, the next one is what we watched, not the harvest one. But
the harvest was the harvest slash. Welcome to the
one where she killed the master.
Oh, the season finale.
Yes,
the season 1.
Yes, the season finale. Which in fact, now that I think about it, I think I didn't watch it back then, and I think I even remember that. And I made sure that I tuned into the second season.
Right.
But yeah, I did see the Halloween episode.
Well, season 2 is where it really popped off with Angel's whole storyline going bad and all that, and they brought my boy Spike onto it. So yeah, but that's been fun.
I mean, we've only watched a few episodes, because really how it works is we watch 2 episodes of Full House, because that's 40 minutes, and then we'll watch 1 episode of Buffy. So clearly we can get through more episodes of Full House than we are getting through Buffy.
And then my plan is to show her a Daredevil season 1 once we get past all that.
So he thinks.
And yeah, we'll see. And you guys who've been listening to the podcast, you know how much Freddie and I love Daredevil. So yeah, I think you'll enjoy it if you watch it with her. Did you like the Daredevil movie?
I liked it okay. I liked it with like the longer version.
Right.
Because it does seem like it flows better.
Well, the show
makes more sense.
The show is essentially that story, but actually like really good and not sort of mediocre.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of what? Not yet. Bullseye will be season 2, but Kingpin and Daredevil, and then I think season 2 they're supposed to bring in Elektra and probably Bullseye. There were rumors recently about Jason Statham doing it, but it sounds like that's not going to happen, probably. But they're bringing the Punisher in season
Jason
2.
Statham does everything.
Yeah, he really does do everything. He's the only actor that is an expendable and also in the Fast and Furious movies.
I know, but who doesn't love Jason Statham?
And the guy from Crank, and he's Transporter, and yeah. Well,
Was
he
in
was
Snatch?
Transporter. Yeah. And Lock, Stock, and what is that? Two Smoking Barrels.
Wasn't that his first movie?
I think those were like some of his breakthrough movies before Transporter and all that kind of happened.
Yeah, he's a badass for sure.
Yeah, he's cool. So, and then the other thing we've been watching at home that you didn't mention is the Star Wars saga.
Oh yes, that's right.
So, what was your experience with those beforehand? And how are you enjoying them so far or not? For such as you guys know, we started with episode 1 and we finished episode 2 last night, so we're sort of going chronologically through the saga because we've never seen them together, and to prepare for The Force Awakens at the end of the year.
So my experience with Star Wars is clearly I heard a lot about it growing up, and when I was 13 years old, before the re-release in '97, my mom's boyfriend at the time had the Star Wars VHS. And actually, now that I think about it, maybe it was my mom's copy because I saw them recently. And so I watched episode 4 through 6. At that time, those were the only 3 Star Wars movies that we knew that were out. So I watched them, and I think I was just bored pretty much the whole time. And I barely remember the story. I remember the Ewoks. I'd heard about the Jabba the Hutt and Princess Leia scene, and maybe I heard about that because of Friends. Because of a Friends episode?
Oh yeah, the Leia fantasy thing.
Yes.
The gold bikini and all that.
Yeah, I think that episode had just aired or something like that during that time. So I watched that, and then in 2005, when Revenge of the Sith came out, I watched that in the movie theater, and I thought it was good. I enjoyed it. I'm just not a big fantasy person, and I'm analytical by nature, so it's hard for me to separate reality from fantasy. But
you realize that makes you sound like a crazy person, right?
Why?
It's hard for me to separate fantasy from reality.
I'm talking about fantasy movies.
Oh, okay. Well, I was getting a little nervous.
Books I like to read are fiction, not science fiction, not even romantic fiction. I like just fiction. Historical fiction, some nonfiction like business books, money books. So, but fantasy, like even C.S. Lewis, the Madeline Engel. I tried to read those when I was younger. Wrinkle in Time.
Oh, those. Oh, I didn't remember the author's name.
I just couldn't get into it, and I just have been like that.
I like that as a kid. See, I feel like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what that's about. Well, you've seen now the Harry Potters, the Lord of the Rings, and the 3 Hobbit movies. So I mean, are you not enjoying any of them, or are you sort of like?
Yeah,
somewhat,
Yeah, and not to say that I don't enjoy any of these films.
But it's a little hard for you to accept. Okay, they could do that because of the Force or because of magic or whatever.
Right, and you know me, I'm sitting there watching movies like, okay, yeah, this is real. And I'm trying to take away my disbelief and know that this is the story, and that a lot of these stories are also beloved by people.
Right.
And I haven't read Lord of the Rings, I haven't read Harry Potter, I haven't read any
Star Wars screenplays.
Right.
I was wondering where you're going with that.
So, but I know that those stories are just so loved, and I think it's interesting that sometimes the most beloved stories are the fantasy ones.
Right.
Because Star Wars some people would think it's more science fiction too, but I guess
it's a combination. Star Wars is a combination, and that's what made it unique when it first came out. Because it's as much like they have spaceships, but they also have like the Force, which is essentially their version of magic, sort of. So they're like space wizards. They're like space wizards basically. It's a perfect combination of the 2 genres, but
they have aliens.
Yeah, exactly. So, and thus far, I mean, now you've seen the whole saga, but I feel like 4, 5, and 6 are by far more acclaimed. I mean, as you know. So I feel like you'll appreciate them more as an adult now than you did as a 13-year-old, because I was sort of like, I saw them. My parents actually did something similar when it was announced that the special editions were coming out. We went to the video store and we rented all 3. And yeah, video stores. Remember those guys? We went to the video store and rented all 3, like the old, like grimy original versions. And I think we watched them in a relatively short period, like a few days. I think it was one of those like you rent them because they were the older movies. So I think you would get it for like 5 days or something, 3 days, whatever. And I liked them all right, but it wasn't until I saw them on the big screen, all three of them in '97, that I really like. Okay, this is kind of awesome. And that's where the obsession really began for me, because I had that big screen movie going experience. But my initial viewing, I was like, okay, I get it, but I was never really into it until my mid-teens. So no, I'm interested to see how you'll like them as we continue along. The two that we've done are by far the weakest, as you've seen, with a lot of the Anakin Padme stuff and all that, Jar Jar Binks, etc. So that'll be continuing on.
Well, one interesting thing about Star Wars, though, is that this is a story that's gone on for 50 years, and it's like Robin Williams, Robin Williams was a part of our parents' generation. It's part of our generation. It's part of other people's kids' generations now. And I feel like Star Wars is the same way. Like our parents were watching Star Wars in the movie theater. Well, maybe my parents weren't. They were hippies. But they were watching Star Wars in the movie theater. And then the re-release comes out when we're kids, when we're teenagers.
It's a perfect time to prime people for The Phantom Menace 2 years later, too.
Right.
Which was the idea, I'm sure.
Right. And so that came out, re-released, and Phantom Menace came out when we were teenagers. And so it kind of sparked this love.
Yeah, we were in high school.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, yeah, I think, yeah, we were freshmen when re-release happened. And then now, and then now, The Force Awakens, now for the young children.
So now our generation's kids are going to be introduced to Star Wars the first time with The Force Awakens in theaters.
I mean,
that's crazy, right?
That's pretty incredible. And I mean, I'm not the biggest Star Wars person, and I probably won't be after everything is said and done. But I can definitely respect that and admire the ferocity for this trilogy.
Saga.
The saga, right?
The Star Wars saga,
right? Because that's hard to beat.
That's sort of how I feel about James Bond, like how you're talking about it, and you're like, I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of it, but I respect what it's accomplished and all the people out there that love it. Like I really like James Bond, and I enjoy, I've seen a few of the old ones, and I really like the Daniel Craig movies, and I'm looking forward to Spectre just like everybody else. But I'm not like marking the days on my calendar down, like, oh, Spectre's coming out in November or whatever.
That's what you're doing for Star Wars.
That's what I'm doing for Star Wars. That's what I did for Avengers. There's certain ones I'm doing that for. And so I don't have that same love for James Bond that some people do, but again, that I still have a sort of reverence for, like, okay, James Bond's been around since the early '60s, so it's kind of the original, like, long-standing franchise.
That's our grandparents' movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like when our parents were in elementary school was when James Bond was hitting the scene. That's crazy.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When I think about it, that's pretty amazing too. Didn't it just have 60 years?
Yeah, a few years, like when Skyfall came out, I think 2012.
Yeah, and they had a big thing at the Oscars.
Yeah, that's craziness. So.
Okay, wow. We're covering like already two movies in this year.
Nostalgia's going along here.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go ahead and talk about what everybody else is talking about.
Jurassic World.
There you go.
We saw it Thursday night at the premiere, and.
Well, not the premiere.
Well, premiere night.
The preview screening.
Yeah, preview screening.
You make it sound like we were at the red carpet.
Wouldn't that be why can't people fantasize about that?
But I don't want to lie to the people. I'm keeping it real, people.
It's not lying. It's insinuating.
She already said she can't tell fantasy from reality, so there you go. So what did you think about Jurassic World, and what was your relationship to the Jurassic Park franchise going in?
Well, I saw Jurassic Park in the movie theater when I was 10 years old, and it was actually the first film that I saw when I moved back to Florida from Missouri. And me and my sister saw it with my dad, and I thought it was cool. I'm like, oh, cool, dinosaurs. And it actually made me interested in reading the Jurassic Park book by Michael Crichton, and I did not finish it. I could not get through it.
I might still have it somewhere. I wonder. I might have gotten rid of it. I don't know.
Which is so funny, because if I had read that book now, I think I probably would like it, because I love Michael Crichton. I think he's an amazing author. And but I think that Jurassic Park, I was just too young for it. But from what I know, from what you told me, it's basically has dinosaurs, but that's it. That's the only thing that's similar.
The book? I mean, there's similar characters, but the storyline goes off totally different direction.
But So that was my experience with Jurassic Park. I didn't see Lost World. I didn't see Jurassic Park 3. And so at Jurassic World, well, I saw Lost World before we saw Jurassic World.
Yeah, like last week though, right before, pretty much. Basically because I was like, we have to, Jurassic World's coming out, and that was a good time to watch the Lost World, and you were like, okay.
Yeah, and was I really missing anything?
I think
the last 15 years.
I think it's well. Are you done with your perspective on the franchise?
Oh no, I know. So Jurassic World.
Because I'll get into that.
Jurassic World actually was really good. I was.
No. Your perspective on the franchise beforehand. Oh. That's all I'm asking now.
Oh, I was just like, okay, maybe I'm just, I guess, not a person that got moved by movies either then or now. But I thought it was an interesting idea. And dinosaurs are cool, and I think that it's something that's interesting for all of us. Like I think a lot of us are interested in space, just like a lot of us are interested in dinosaurs, because it's something that none of us have really ever experienced. So we have to live through stories and science, and to have those things be as close to reality as we can get. Well
said. Well, my relationship with the Jurassic Park franchise, I loved the first one. I saw it in theaters on my 10th birthday. And I had a book about the dinosaurs of Jurassic Park, talking about all the different species and describing them and what they were like and all that and how they lived. And as a child, read both Jurassic Park and The Lost World in middle school. A few years later when Lost World came out. So I was huge into Jurassic Park, and I've watched it a bazillion times on VHS. And also saw Lost World when that hit theaters, and I loved that a lot too. At the time, when we rewatched it, you were asking if I felt like you were really missing anything. It's nowhere near as good as the first one, but a lot of people I feel like shit on Lost World more than they really should. I feel like Lost World is because people kind of lump it in with Jurassic Park 3, and because they're so caught up in the greatness of the original Jurassic Park. I feel like the Lost World has sort of become a little bit underrated. I think there are a lot of sequences and a lot of things that a movie does have going for it, even though it's by far not, far from being a perfect movie or even a satisfying follow-up to the first one. But I think as Jurassic Park 3 proved, they really could have done a lot worse. And I think, having Jeff Goldblum back was fun. And some of the lines and some of the storylines that they picked up with were a lot of fun, and the trailer sequence especially.
Yes,
that was really well done.
Good. I agree with a lot of people. I did not think the San Diego scene, they did not need a fourth act. That was a little.
That's the most common criticism I hear of that.
I thought the movie was over.
Movie, yeah.
And all of a sudden we're in San Diego.
It would have been. You probably would have liked the movie better if that had been the end.
Yes, yeah. Maybe. Because it's like I said, we were watching Godzilla with a T-Rex.
Essentially, well, yeah, and they
basically it's a Godzilla because a big dinosaur.
He's a giant lizard, essentially, yeah. Yeah, because they even had that scene. They even had a little like a little nod to it, with the Asian people running away and turning like screaming. That was quite clearly a Godzilla kind of homage. So for Jurassic World, I was already coming in like pumped to begin with and hoping it was going to be great. My expectations were probably higher than I was expecting them to be when I actually went in to see it.
That's great. That's good.
Well, not usually. Sometimes it's not good, because sometimes I go in there and I'm like, oh my god, this is going to be amazing, and then I come out and I'm like, it wasn't amazing. Like, for example, I was so hyped about The Dark Knight that I came out disappointed the first time. And now thinking back, I'm like, the fuck's wrong with you? How could you be disappointed in that movie? But I had built it up so high that, if the movie if Batman hadn't come out of the screen and sucked my dick in the theater, I would have been like, what is up with this? This is not living up to it for me.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think it's good that you went in and you had hyped it up, but you left even feeling even more hyped up.
Yeah.
You weren't surprised. That's good, because you didn't overhype it so much that you were pleasantly surprised by how good it was.
Yeah, you can read my review on crookedtable.com. I gave it a very, very favorable review. A lot of people have a lot of criticisms about it, that the characters are flat and some of the subplots are, a little cliche and all that. And I agree with that to an extent, but it's also like, if I'm rating it as a follow-up to Jurassic Park, I feel like Jurassic Park had a lot of those same issues. I feel like I feel like Jurassic Park has been put on this pedestal that people think it's untouchable. But really, a lot of the storylines and stuff that's going on in there, it's like, oh, Alan Grant doesn't like kids, and he just hanging out with these kids, he starts to appreciate children, I guess. It's like, how is that much different than Bryce Dallas Howard's storyline in Jurassic World? You know what I mean?
And at least those were her nephews.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I agree that Jurassic Park is a far better movie, don't get me wrong, and I think the characters in that are more indelible than the ones in Jurassic World. But it's also, Jurassic World has had like 3 or 4 days to mature. Jurassic Park has had 22 years, so it's
and we
not
saw
really
it
fair.
on the 22nd anniversary.
Yeah,
we
that's
saw
weird.
it on June 11th, which in 1993, June 11th was the date it came out. So we get to say that for the rest of our lives.
Why am I getting the feeling that your excitement is fake a little?
It's a little bit of both. It's excitement and it's sarcasm.
That's mean.
Well, no, because we're not going to talk about this the rest of our lives. And we saw Jurassic World on the 22nd anniversary of its release.
No, but see, December 18th, I'll be saying, I saw Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, in theaters on opening day, or midnight screening. I might go to the midnight screening and then bring you a second night.
What about, wouldn't they have like an 8 o'clock screening?
Yeah, probably. Jeez, you gotta ruin it.
I don't think they do midnight screenings as much anymore. It's like, yeah, we're gonna get people in the door the night before.
It depends on the movie. Sometimes I guess. It depends on the movie and the theater, I think. I think that night when we went to see Jurassic World, I'm pretty sure they also had like a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10, and like 11 or something.
Well, right. What I'm saying is though that it's not really.
It's not the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5 years ago, it was a midnight screening. That was the first premiere of a new film, and now it's like. Yeah, the first premiere to me at 7 o'clock.
Well, it's because they want to boost their box office numbers for opening weekend.
About money.
And Thursday night ticket sales count towards that weekend now. So it's more chance for them. It's another chance for them to boost their numbers. Be like, uh-oh, we broke the record. We're like, yeah, now you guys are all opening on Thursdays. Of course you're breaking.
Well, yeah. So Jurassic World made $500 million
globally.
Well, I'm sure that those Thursday night numbers really helped with that.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they did.
So maybe if you take that in thirds, then maybe they only
not thirds. I'm sure. I mean, I think they made like 20 million Thursday night, just like those like few screenings or whatever.
I'd take 20 million.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. I'll take it.
That's pretty good. So I already sort of touched on my feelings about Jurassic World. What did how did you react to the movie? How did it compare for you coming in as someone who was familiar with the original film? But not necessarily putting it on a pedestal like the rest of us. How did it compare to that? What did you like better? And how do you think it compares in general? I guess.
I think it was really good. I mean, I was pleasantly surprised. Like I thought it was just gonna be like, okay, it's okay, but it's fun. But it was really good, and it had a lot of action, and some scenes made me jump a little bit, and some scenes made me cheer in my head. I don't cheer out loud, and I really liked it, and I think I actually like it better than the first one. But I say this, but I may change my mind later, especially if me and you continue talking about it. I may be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's a movie buff guy, and
You just live here.
Yeah, I just live here.
No, but that third act, I don't want to get into spoil. We'll just keep it spoiler free. But that third act, like that climax. The climactic battle, a showdown that goes down. Oh my god, so awesome. Movie moment of the year so far for me. Like topping anything that I've seen in Mad Max or, Avengers Age of Ultron or any of that. That was like the cheer out loud moment of 2015 as far as movie going for me.
Yeah, no, that was pretty
people
cool.
were like roaring with cheers. How often have you seen something like that where people are like, woo, like literally like out loud cheering and clapping and everything?
Not very often. And I like who they made the heroes.
Yes, yeah, we'll let that stand. So because it's still very fresh.
Yeah.
People might not have seen the movie, so yeah, go see it if you haven't seen it. We're very enthusiastic about it,
and Chris Pratt did a great job.
Despite whatever character flaws and whatever the movie that people have criticized a lot, and again not to get into spoilers, but I think the subplot that's taking the most heat is probably the Vincent D'Onofrio one, which we won't get into that too much, but it involves the Raptors and like what his intention is involved in the film, that kind of thing. A lot of people are like, really? Come on. But I don't know. To me, it's like, yeah, it's sort of silly and it's a little out there, but isn't this whole premise of this whole movie kind of out there to begin with? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, I think I saw. I didn't. It did sort of hit me initially, like, that's what we're doing, really? And then, but as it went on, I was like, all right, you know what? Fuck it. I'll let it go. I'll let you guys slide. I get it. You know. Plus, I cut this particular film, even more slack than I would normally, just because it has been so long for this franchise to come back, and because they did do so many things right, and sort of had a lot of references and homages to the original film without copying it and sort of bringing it into a modern era and pushing the story forward. Because really, it's the first one that I think to really push the story forward since the first one. I mean, the second and third were sort of random tangents that didn't really develop anything in any of the themes that were initially established. So.
And they weren't in the canon.
I mean, I think they're sort of they're technically still in canon, but I think it was wise for the director Colin Trevorrow to kind of overlook those movies because they get more of a mixed response and sort of have him be like, hey, you guys love Jurassic Park, right? Well, we're gonna kind of bring it back and do our own thing in the spirit of that film, and I think this really caught that. Like I felt a similar sort of rush as the film was going on as I did with that first one in theater. So.
Well, one thing I wanna ask you about, because they did this in both The Lost World and they said this in Jurassic World. What do you think of when the scientists who create the dinosaurs say that the dinosaurs belong to them, so they're able to
that they're property and that they're not alive?
Right, because you have those other, you have the paleontologists and the archaeologists, all the dinosaur people that say you can't.
Dinosaur people. You know those dinosaur people.
Well, they all have. There was a botanist in the first one.
Paleobotanist.
Right.
Ellie
Exactly.
Sattler, yeah.
Right.
So
they study dinosaurs, fossil things. Anyway, and so they're saying don't mess with the dinosaurs. Like, who are you to try to hurt them or take them away from the right? Who's to say you could do that? Like, we can do that because they're our property. They would not be here if it wasn't for us.
Right.
What do you think about that?
Well, I think the whole thing, it's the fact that they're creating living things inherently touches on the classic sci-fi theme of playing God. And I feel like, I mean, it opens up the doors to a much more controversial debate. I mean, then it starts to be like, okay, well, this child wasn't here. I made this child, so I own this child. I'm like, really? Do you though? Because he's alive and he's sentient and he's aware of what's going on. He can feel pain and all that. So I feel like just the fact that they genetically engineer these dinosaurs doesn't take away the fact that they are alive now and that they're aware of things and they have hearts that beat and all that. So I mean,
when people genetically modify pets, they genetically modify pigs, cats, dogs.
Right.
But people wouldn't say, oh, this is a genetically modified dog. This species this breed would not exist if it wasn't for scientists getting involved.
Which is true, but that doesn't take away the fact that you can just do whatever the hell you want with that creature afterwards.
Exactly.
And there's a really interesting, just to go ahead and comment real fast too, the whole thing with Chris Pratt and the Raptors and his relationship with them and training them and that kind of thing. I also thought that was going to be goofy as shit in the movie, but it actually worked for the most part, throughout. And I thought it was an interesting, because again, you want to have some of the similar themes from the first movie, but actually do something new and different and have a kind of a different spin on them. And I felt like that did a good job of that.
Yeah, no, I like that. That was a really endearing part in the movie, and I believe Chris Pratt could be a raptor trainer. What exactly did he do in the movie though? Was he just the dinosaur trainer?
He was sort of like the raptor wrangler or whatever. Like, that was just to keep them under control. Because, I mean, as you saw in the original movie, raptors like to act a fool, basically.
They do. Like to eat a fool, too.
That, too. But actually, Jurassic World is a good jumping off point, because, feels like every week we're getting another, reboot. I mean, Freddie and I touched on that last episode. Reboot, remake, sequel of something from 20 years ago. Jurassic Park, for example. Or Jurassic World, as the case is now. So, what do you think is up with this whole nostalgia trend that we have going on? And do you think maybe, in a lot of ways, to me at least, it feels like 2015 is sort of the year of nostalgia and like the tipping point for that kind of entertainment? Why do you think that we're seeing so much more of that?
I don't know. I think that, I mean, I know for me, I have a lot of memories and a lot of experiences when I was a child, and I think that we're just in this phase right now of just wanting to be nostalgic. I mean, go on a website like BuzzFeed, and they're all about nostalgia, you know.
Yeah, that's another. The websites are another. The internet is a big perpetuator of the whole nostalgia thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so it's you know, it's like that CollegeHumor joke that says, "Remember when nostalgia was fun? When you actually had to think about your, you know."
That's always the CollegeHumor video we talk about. I feel like
because I
think I mentioned CollegeHumor on the last podcast, and I don't know if I referenced that particular video, but I wouldn't be surprised if I did.
Yes, because it's so relevant. Because it's like before, you know, you had to think, oh gosh, remember back in the 80s when you used to wear jumpers? And I mean, we can even have a whole podcast about clothing coming back. But that's my own podcast that I would have, not the one you would have. But, you know, you think about the 80s and they had jumpers and rompers. And, you know, now you're in, you know, the 21st century and rompers are coming back.
Right.
But now they're more modernized. And it's just like we can't get enough of what we used to like. And maybe it's also a way of trying to get not just a new audience, like the young audience, which is ultimately they're the ones that are paying for the movie tickets. They're the ones that are paying for albums.
The ones with disposable income.
The ones with disposable income, more time. But it's also trying to wrangle in, you know, the 30-somethings that remember this and get their dollars too. And it's I think it's also in the whole time of the age of franchises as well. You know, there's franchise after franchise after franchise that, as you remind me, will never end because it's money.
Well, what did we just say? Star Wars has been here for what, 40-something, almost 50 years, and James Bond over 60. So I mean, franchises are nothing new, but I feel like now it's so much of, hey, remember this thing? We're gonna bring it back for you, and then you could like.
You only hope it's gonna be good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look, the Ninja Turtles they just brought back, and I actually that was a guilty pleasure of mine. I know Freddie and I really disagreed about that one, but I mean, like, look at the new Star Wars trailers with the Han Solo and Chewbacca cameo at the end. It's like they're basically banking on the fact that fans are watching that and being like, you know, reacting like, holy shit, holy Han Solo on the big screen again, I gotta see this. And then I was mentioning, you know, earlier today, a new TV spot for Pixels came out, which I actually wrote up for Screen Rant, and there's so many shots in there of Pac-Man, Donkey Kong, you know, Space Invaders, I think, and Paperboy for the first time was in this one. It's and every time I see one of those characters, I remember playing the game as a kid, and I was like, oh my god, Paperboy's in this! Holy crap, I gotta see that.
Yeah, and I think that a movie like that is straight on nostalgia, because you know, a teenager is gonna watch and be like, who the hell is Donkey Kong? I mean, I guess
well,
they would know
Donkey Kong they might know,
but no, they would not know Paperboy.
No, they would not. They might not even know Q*bert.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah, and Pac-Man has games like in the arcade, but I feel like it's a lot of times people our age are playing Pac-Man. So I feel like the teenagers are more like, what? Who are all these characters? Like, it's not really for them.
Right.
I think it's more for us.
At least with Wreck-It Ralph, which was similar, like a lot of video game characters. I feel like they were more modern ones. Like you had, like, you know, some of the characters from Mario and Sonic, and those characters actually are still relevant. Like, they still have games coming out all the time. So that makes them a little more sense. It's a little more accessible to kids. But yeah, Pixels is totally banking on drawing in the 30, 40-somethings that are like, oh my god, I remember playing that when I was a kid.
And also with Adam Sandler.
You bring the kids in there. That brings the kids in though too.
Right, but Adam Sandler was the guy that was in Billy Madison and Happy Gilmore when we were kids.
Right.
But Adam Sandler's kind of like the comedian.
But he also has just as many hits in the last. Well, I mean, not as many hits, but he's also got the Grown Ups movies. Those are big hits, and those were just a few years ago.
But see, Grown Ups, I feel like is a lot about nostalgia too, because those are adults with kids, their wives, and it's about them wanting to have a good time, even though they're older. And most of them are the you know, former SNL cast members: Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, David Spade, Rob Schneider, and then I think Kevin James is the only the odd man out there, but. Because, you know, neither one of us, I haven't seen either. Have you ever seen those movies? I've seen the first one. And actually, it was fun. I mean, but that's really.
I heard the second one is terrible. So if the first one's supposed to be terrible and the second one is even more terrible, I'm gonna stay away. But
who's to say Adam Sandler really cares that much about his?
Oh, he doesn't. Have you seen any of his movies? He just picks. He literally. I think I said this once before, either to you or on a podcast or something. But he literally saw the script from Blended and said in interviews that he wanted to do the movie because he got to go to Africa for free. That has nothing. Have you seen that movie? There's no reason he was possibly reading that being, reacting like, oh my god, this is a great story. I'd love to tell this. This has never been brought to screen before. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure there's nothing new in that movie.
Well, it's also
I have seen
$20 million a picture. You think he could afford to take himself to Africa one of these years?
I know, but why do that when when the studio pay you to go and provide you lodging and all that shit?
Right.
All expenses paid, just so you could show up and yell some ridiculous lines at Drew Barrymore's direction.
True. But yeah, so Pixels I really feel like is nostalgic. And so Terminator Genesis is coming out in a couple weeks. And I feel like Terminator Genesis is between the line of reboot and nostalgic. Like they want a new audience.
Sort of Jurassic World to a certain extent, too.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's like a reboot, but it wants to tap into the market that really remembers those movies and which is genius. It's a genius marketing ploy because you're getting that much more revenue and profit because you have the 30, 40 something. They're like, oh my gosh, I still remember. I'm so excited. And then you have the young people who are like, oh, cool dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. Cool action. What the hell? Chris Pratt from Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
That's why it was so smart that they got him. Because all you needed was him on a poster with a bunch of raptors, and all the kids were like, holy crap, Star-Lord is racing down with raptors? I got to see that.
Right, exactly. So they're able, so Jurassic World is able to do so well also for that reason. It has two separate demographics.
Right.
And, maybe Pixels might only get the
It depends. It'll be, I'm really interested to see, one, if that movie's going to be any good, and two, how well it performs at the box office. Because I think in a lot of ways, that's one of the biggest question marks for the summer. I mean, I think we all know that Minions is going to, kill it. And, stuff like Ant-Man is... I think Ant-Man's going to do well. I don't think it's going to, do Guardians of the Galaxy numbers, but I think it's going to do well. But, a lot of the movies coming out, we can sort of be that'll probably be big. That, we don't know. We'll see. But I think Pixels is probably one of the big question marks. But, I mean, for me, as far as the nostalgia and why I think it's happening, I mean, obviously, I think part of it is, laziness in Hollywood. I think it's easier for them to be like, we own this property, dust it off, and, who can we get that's a hot name in this to kind of take on this role? That's part of it. But then, some of those have been done in very creative ways. Mad Max, for example, is another one of those reboot/sequels. Jurassic World, we already mentioned. A lot of them are being done well, which makes me happy about that. But I think that's definitely part of it. I think another part of it, I wonder if, on a broader scale, the whole nostalgia obsession that's going on, not only with movies, but with television shows, with things like X-Files and Heroes coming back, Fuller House, the new Full House version, or a sequel series that's coming out. I wonder if some of that has to do with, a few years ago when the recession hit, and, everything is so much bleaker in the news, in the media. It just feel like, because we have so much more information available to us, the last few years, I feel like it's a lot of, we're bombarded with bad news, and the celebrity thing is getting ridiculous. So I wonder, some of us that are rebelling against, the next generation coming in with their Kardashians and
Real Housewives
and all that bullshit. I wonder if it's sort of us, our generation, sort of rebelling against the next wave of kids coming in. And kind of looking back and be like, oh man, remember when things were awesome? That kind of thing. Plus, like I said, and Tomorrowland touched on, the whole bleakness of post-apocalyptic media, and how there's global warming, and there's all these disasters happening, and all these things like that. I wonder if that also plays a part in us sort of being looking towards better days in the past, and wanting to relive those through Jurassic Park, Terminator, whatever, different Star Wars, different things like that.
That's a really interesting angle, and I didn't really think about that. I mean, definitely thought about the lazy portion.
Well, yeah,
of
I
it.
mean that one's kind of.
that one's
Well,
lazy.
that's always a given. That's a given. That's
Yeah.
why we had Lethal Weapon 1, 2, 3, 4.
And that's also why it's going back to fashion, because I feel like movies and fashion go back to they time travel.
Well, they're cyclical too. Like they're constantly like
They get lazy with the fashion.
Like
slasher movies.
Slasher movies were huge in the 70s, and then not so much, and then the 90s again. Slasher movies were all over the place. Just like you said, apparently
I feel like they're coming back again.
Yeah, maybe they're on their way back. Well, we went through our whole Paranormal Activity. We're still in that whole like supernatural, creepy thing with the Purge, not the Purge, with Insidious and Paranormal Activity.
Still Sinister 2 is gonna have a sequel.
Which one?
Sinister's having a sequel.
Oh yeah, Sinister sequel coming out. But like you were saying, like the Raw part earlier, like I guess that was big in the I'm a man, so I didn't give a shit about like ladies' fashion in the 90s. But apparently those are big in the 90s, so I guess that's a good example of fashion coming back around.
Right, but then they just look better. Even as a kid, I'm like, I wouldn't wear a romper or a jumper, and I'm like, that romper's cute. I can pull it off. So and of course, another thing is your taste change. So when you're a kid, Jurassic Park might not be as interesting to you, but when you're like, and actually,
really? Jurassic Park might not be interesting to a kid.
We were watching Jurassic Park recently, and you even said, "Wow, they're talking about some deep stuff here." I forgot about that.
Yeah, that movie's got a lot of like. There's some great conversational scenes in there, in that film, talking about the theme and stuff.
So I think that when you're a kid and you're seeing, movies like that, TV shows like that, and you're just kind of not understanding the high concept, and then when you get older and you watch it again, you watch the original, and then you watch the reboot or the nostalgic one, whatever it may be, you're like, oh wow, like that's so deep. Like I didn't see that before.
Right.
So, like, because I would ask, as if I'd asked a question when I was a kid about the whole extinct property question that I asked about the dinosaurs. So, I think that's the other thing. It's just, you get it more when you're older.
Right.
So, but what about the movies that are coming that are really just, like, it's straight on, like, Goosebumps?
Oh, I want to see that just because I read well, not all, but I read a lot of the, I had probably 30-something of the books. I think I still have them in the cabinet over there. So I mean, I don't even know much about that except that it has a bunch of the creatures from the books and Jack Black. So I'm already on board just based on that.
Right, and I'm like really surprised if they're not really surprised at this point, but it's just that it's interesting to have a Goosebumps movie because this is like 20 years in the making now. I mean, those books came out in the mid 90s, so they should have done a movie a long time ago. But
well, they had the TV show. Did you ever watch the show?
I did a little bit.
Fox was it on? I don't remember.
I think it was on Fox. I also think that was during the same time as like Eerie.
I didn't watch that. I've heard of that, but I never looked at that.
So Goosebumps. So that's definitely for the older audience like ourselves, and then for the young kids that are like, ooh, that looks fun, and it's like kind of as a scary movie.
But for kids,
that they can see with their parents or their friends.
There was a lot of those when we were kids, like Hocus Pocus, and you haven't seen that. That's on your.
Scary?
I mean, it's spooky. It has witches and stuff. I mean, it's for the whole family. There haven't been very many like Halloween themed films for families lately, have there?
No.
I feel like Paranorman and Frankenweenie were like the most recent examples.
Oh, what about Transylvania?
Oh, I guess, but those are Adam Sandler, so you know how I feel about that.
Right, true. Well, also, Jim and the Holograms is going to be a movie, and as me and my sister watched Jim and the Holograms when I was 6 years old, and it came on every Saturday morning, and we'd ask my dad to turn on the television for us because he had a television that the knob didn't work very well, so he had to turn it on for us, and we'd watch Jim and the Holograms. So I'm excited about that, just because.
Have you seen the trailer?
No.
Yeah, if you want to be depressed, I'll show you the trailer.
Or maybe you did show me.
I don't think I did.
Live action, right?
I think I told you about it, and you were like, what? And I was like, well, yeah. I have no connection to that whatsoever. Like, I never watched the show. Honestly, I feel like I was barely aware of the show when it was on.
She was the original Hannah Montana, for those of you that don't know.
Wow.
Because she was a rock star, and then she had
a secret life.
Yes.
Yeah. She had what was it? An earring that had like powers, or she talked or something. I don't even know.
Yeah.
It's weird. What else you got?
Well, Transporter's coming out, but that might be more like a reboot.
That is a reboot, yeah.
That was like 10 years ago. It's not like that old of a story. And it is.
And it's not really cashing in on nostalgia as much. It's just like, here's the same thing, but with a different guy. Which, by the way, just to touch on that real fast, Jason Statham is the transporter. You don't do that. And he's not even playing a different character, this new guy, and whose name I don't remember because I don't care. This guy's not even playing a new character. He's playing Frank Martin, the same character that Jason Statham played. That's, in my mind, that's like getting someone else to. That's like that. You can't do that. That's like doing a Terminator movie with like somebody else in the same Arnold part. If you're gonna do that, do a different part, different actor.
Why is it okay
maybe.
though to have a different actor play James Bond? Because Sean Connery was the original James Bond. And a lot of people said that, from what I remember hearing. They said, how can you replace Sean Connery with someone else?
But he also was doing it for a long time. I mean, Jason Statham is still around doing stuff. He could do that if they wanted him. But I think they're just like, I think they just want someone who's cheaper, honestly, who they will take a smaller paycheck and they can make more movies with him. I think Jason Statham's above their level now because he's basically one of the top action stars now today. So it's pretty much him and Dwayne Johnson. I would say that you put them in an action movie, you're gonna get at least some amount of money on it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So yeah, it's a Transporter more of a reboot. So what about Fantastic Four? I feel like that's a reboot.
That's a reboot, and it's also a franchise that's been around forever. And it's not catching on nostalgia because it's totally fresh.
What about Vacation?
That's a reboot because not only is.
But that's nostalgic though.
It's a nostalgic one though, but it's a reboot, but it's a sequel also, and it's real referencing.
We should have like a name for this. If it's a reboot.
It's a hybrid one.
Yeah. Well.
We'll
have to think about it.
Like Jurassic World is a hybrid, like the Indominus Rex is a hybrid.
Right.
This could be an Indominus Rex one. We'll have to come up with a shortened version of that. But no, Vacation definitely cashes in on nostalgia because it's the same fucking plot as the first movie. One of the Griswolds is taking his family to Wally World and like to sort of reconnect. Exactly same story.
Sounds like Fuller House, except on
sort of, yeah, basically.
The big screen.
Yeah, exactly. And supposedly I know Chevy Chase is in it because I've seen him in the trailers. But I don't. Supposedly.
Which is great for him since he hasn't done anything.
Well, he's in a Community for.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't watch TV. Remember?
That's true. I don't either, but I read about it. And I think Beverly D'Angelo is supposed to be in it with him. So they're acknowledging those old movies, which is smart because it's allowing them to acknowledge to please fans of the original film by being like, hey, remember these guys? They're still around, and now let's get started with a new generation of Griswolds. Because they basically have Ed Helms playing the son, Rusty, in that one. So that looks interesting. I don't.
This movie was 30 years ago.
Early 80s, right?
Yeah.
Like 81 or something?
Yeah.
80? Yeah.
That movie's older than us.
Yeah, around there.
That's crazy. And now they're like, all right, we want to get in on this nostalgia reboot.
It actually does look great. I mean, I liked the Vacation all right, but I was never a huge fan of it, of any of them really. And I've seen all four, probably a couple times each. And that was a weird sound I made. And I don't know. I don't have any attachment to the franchise per se.
Some people love it though.
Yeah, some people do love it, especially the Christmas one. I feel like is possibly the most beloved. But I mean, it looks funny to me. I like Ed Helms and Christina Applegate. And
I love Chris Hemsworth.
Have you seen the trailer? You only saw a picture.
I think I just saw a picture.
I should show you the
trailer.
trailer.
Like, oh, Chris Hemsworth.
I should show you the trailer because he does something really interesting in it where you're like, what the fuck? This is Thor, and he's being all silly.
Doesn't he have a fake?
No, it's not supposed to be fake in the movie. That's what I'm saying.
Oh.
Exactly. So I'm looking forward to that. That should be fun. I hope it is. And for the sake of fans out there, I think it has a good chance at least to not suck.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Well, the last nostalgic thing that's coming out is, just to touch on briefly, is Point Break. Rob and I actually saw this movie together recently, maybe a couple months ago. This was a movie that I watched a lot as a kid because my dad was a surfer, and like he'd always want to watch Point Break, and I'm like, oh my god, this movie's so stupid. But then when we just watched it, being older, I'm like, oh wow, I guess I totally not realized that all this stuff happened. So yeah, they're bringing that one back. So that should be interesting.
That has a lot of people pissed off because that's a cult classic, and a lot of people hold that up as one of the best action movies in the 90s. Believe it or not. And
with Patrick Swayze no longer being with us, and it's in a way kind of disrespectful because he was I'm trying to get my words, but
he was a cool guy.
He was a cool guy, and
No,
Point Break, and he like owned the 90s, you know.
He didn't let
Ghosts and Point Break
in the late 80s, early 90s, really.
Yeah.
Because in the late 80s he had Roadhouse and Dirty Dancing.
Right. Yeah. So that there was like a 5-year period. He was just. The man.
I don't know when Roadhouse was. I think we looked it up. Was it like 86 or something like that?
Yeah, it was definitely.
And then Dirty Dancing was like 87, and then the Ghost was 90, and the other one was like 91, 92, something like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So he owns it. So I feel like just in regards to Patrick Swayze's memory, why do we have to do a reboot? And especially Keanu Reeves. I mean,
he's still around doing John. He's doing
John Utah.
He's gonna be in John Wick sequel. They're doing a sequel to that. So he's
got
a new franchise. John. Yeah. I like that movie a lot, actually, John Wick, and that proves that Keanu Reeves can still kick ass. But did you hear Lori Petty came out about Point Break, and she's kind of pissed about it? She's like, doesn't want to watch the trailer. She doesn't care. She's like, how can you top that? That's just stupid.
Well, if it's a good movie, then
because that was Catherine Bigelow directed that, the original, the Hurt
Locker. Yeah, I was thinking of her as the Hurt Locker. So she must have been really new to the movie business.
Oh, with Point Break?
Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
And actually, I'm really impressed that was a woman.
Yeah, it's a very male-centric
Yeah.
film.
But surfers, they're kind of sensitive in general.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean,
it's
got all
the
that movie's got all the trappings of a cheesy '90s action movie, like I am an FBI agent.
And you were waiting for that part.
I was. Well, that's a classic line, and even I know about that.
Yeah, and I think I want to see it just because
I'll show you we'll sit here for a few minutes after we're done with the podcast, and I'll show you a couple of trailers so you can see if you really are wanting to see it or not.
It's just, I just have memories of that movie.
Oh, exactly. Nostalgia. That's what
exactly. I know. I'm the exact audience. I can't believe I'm falling for this.
Yeah, see? So disappointed in you.
Yeah. But that's a lot of the big nostalgic movies and reboots that are coming out this year.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I feel like, it's definitely been a trend that's been percolating in recent years, but it seems like this year it's really sort of coming to a head. It feels like every week is one, like I said earlier. So, I don't know.
Yeah, every time you write you're writing a movie article and you're like, oh, and this one movie's coming out, and this movie's coming out. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, it's only been 10 years, or wow, really? I totally forgot about that.
Right, exactly.
Oh, and Flower in the Attic was on Lifetime.
They have a whole, what are they on? Like, they've had like 4 of them already.
Right, which they didn't even get that far with the initial movie.
Yeah, they just did the one.
We saw those recently.
That was rough.
Yeah, so, everybody's getting in on this.
Very true. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up now.
Okay.
You can find us on Facebook, Twitter. You can reach me at Crooked Table.
And you can reach me at the Vault Key LLC on Twitter.
Of course, you can read all our reviews, features, etc.
You can check out my YouTube videos.
Oh, or you can interrupt me. You can find all our features, reviews at crookedtable.com.
And you can find my blog features on the Vault. www.thevaultkey.com. You can also find my YouTube videos on the Vault Key TV on YouTube.
There you have it. So,
sorry for interrupting.
Yeah,
that was rude.
And you just did it again. You interrupted to say sorry for interrupting.
Of course I did.
I can always count on you. So thanks a lot, guys, and we'll catch you next time. Roll credits. Hey, we're back with the encore segment. How's it going? So, of course, as you guys know, this is the section of the podcast where we talk about something new that we've discovered or whatever, and we bring it to you guys just to share something cool that we've found out about recently since the last episode. So, Kai, did you want to go first? Go ahead.
Sure, I'll go first. And one thing I wanted to talk about that I really enjoy is Hootsuite. And this is something that I've been doing for the last 6 months. And it's something that I do specifically for my business, even though, you can use it in a personal setting too. But what it does is it's a social media site that streams from all your social media sites. So if you have a LinkedIn page, a Twitter page, a Facebook page, Pinterest, you can set all of those social media formats up on your Hootsuite and then just post pictures, statuses, through all of them, and you can save a lot of time. And you can also schedule when posts go out. So if you know that your Twitter, let's say, has more going on at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on a Tuesday, they can schedule your post for 12 o'clock on a Tuesday. Or if you have a blog post that's going to go out on, Wednesday morning, then you can schedule your blog post on Wednesday morning, and you can schedule your promotion about your blog Wednesday morning at the same time that's going to go live. So it's really in conjunction with a lot of the sites for social media, and it's pretty incredible. And the membership is free, and if you want additional features, it's a premium membership. But it's just to start out with basic membership, it's great, and I use it all the time, and I just love how it streams so seamlessly through all of my social media sites. So shout out to Hootsuite.
Cool. Yeah, I've fallen off the Hootsuite bandwagon lately. I haven't really been doing as much social media planning as I should be, but yeah, it's definitely very useful. So I'm going to be talking about something that I finally saw for the first time the other day, and that is I think it's 1987, 86, the late 1980s Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, The Running Man. As a kid, of course, I grew up with a lot of the Arnold movies. Last Action Hero was actually, believe it or not, Last Action Hero is one of my more nostalgic. Speaking of nostalgia, more nostalgic Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Even though I know a lot of people hate it. But of course, I grew up with Terminator, both of them, and Commando and Predator and a lot of these other movies. But The Running Man was actually my most, and I've said this on Twitter, my most egregious blind spot as far as Arnold's career. There's still a few that I have to catch up on, Raw Deal and Red Heat, some of the other lesser ones. But The Running Man is the one that I keep hearing the most about that I still haven't seen. And it was actually, it was really good. It had a lot of flaws as some of the 80s action movies go, where, it was cheesy, sometimes not always in a funny way like we come to expect from Arnold. But there's a great line in there where he's like, I hope you left room in your stomach because I'm gonna reach my fist down there and pull up your goddamn spine. And he picks up a camera and smashes it. And it's like classic Arnold, like overacting, really selling a ridiculous line. But the commentary in it, again, back to the post-apocalyptic, it's set in a future where the government is censoring everything. All the media is being, regulated by the government. And so one of the ways that they keep the people under control is by like having more and more extreme forms of entertainment. And one of the most popular shows is a TV show called The Running Man, where they have convicted felons and they put them in this game zone and they have them basically run for their life while these people called stalkers sort of hunting them down. And it was very Hunger Games-esque, like way before the Hunger Games. And it's based on a story. I don't know if it's a novel or a short story, but it's based on one by what is it, Richard Bachman or whatever, Stephen King.
Oh,
pseudonym.
yes.
So it's based on a Stephen King story, and I thought the theme, it was interesting. It's always interesting when you watch some of those sci-fi movies from the 80s, and they resonate more today than they did then in a way. And it's set in 2017, so I'm like, wow, yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, we're not like totalitarian state like that, at least not that we know of, but it's still interesting how closely a lot of the themes resemble present day, and plus the fact that they had Richard Dawson, who's known for a lot of let's make a deal, but like some of those Family Feud, and a lot of those other game shows before our time, really. But he plays the host of the game show, The Running Man, in the movie, and has a really strong supporting role as the main villain. So it was interesting. I'm glad I finally watched it. Still not up there with like probably my favorite non-Terminator sci-fi Arnold movie, which is probably Total Recall. But it was a worthy addition to his resume, and now I really feel like I sort of have to go and nail down the rest of the last remaining Arnold movies that I haven't seen, because there's still a few at least.
At least you saw Twins.
I did. We watched that recently too. We didn't talk about that earlier. And there's this triple feature of Arnold comedies. I didn't even realize Ivan Reitman directed them all, but Twins, Kindergarten Cop, and Junior, the last of which I had never seen, but we'll rectify that at some point. But for $8, I mean, I like Twins and Kindergarten Cop enough to add it to my monstrously large DVD collection. So Junior's just along for the ride, I guess.
That's how juniors can be.
That's true. So there you go. That'll be it for the Crooked Table podcast this week. I'm Rob.
I'm Kai.
And see you guys later. Have fun.
This has been a production of crookedtable.com. All rights reserved.
C-R-O-O-K-E-D.